first part. And all right. Hi, thanks for joining me on Profit with a Plan podcast. This is where you can get some great ideas for your most profitable small business. Just so you know, financial planning isn't only for those that have a lot of money or run big companies. A workable financial plan is for us everyday small business owners and professionals that want to make great financial decisions that lead to bigger profits. So join me, Marcia Reiner, your financial business strategist, fractional CFO, and certified financial planner, each Tuesday for some smart ideas that can add more profits to your bottom line. I help ambitious business owners grow their profits using unique ways of growing their income and spending strategically that produce greater profits without killing themselves chasing more clients. So if you're curious, let's chat, let's get together and see how we can create more profits in your business. So today I'm talking with my good friend Saji. He is with the U.S. Business Counsel. Saji is an attorney who successfully advances strategic growth and risk mitigation goals with his clients with two unique benefits. Actual business management. This guy knows what he's doing. He's got the experience. And flat fees. That is completely unheard of in attorney world. His clients are in consumer services, food and beverage, which is retail and breweries. I like breweries. Wineries. We need to have wineries. Yeah. Manufacturing, technology, and entertainment. So you can contact him directly to learn more about how he is efficient and effectively assisting you towards your success goals. So welcome, Saji.
Oh, thank you, Marcia.
This is great. We're going to talk about business law and how it can grow your profits, lower your risk, and don't be afraid of the laws.
Don't be afraid of the laws.
Yeah.
The laws are your friend.
Your laws are your friends. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. There are some crazy laws. You brought up, a lot of fear and concern that people have as business owners, making sure that they're staying compliant in the law.
Yes.
But how they can use it to their advantage by staying ahead, too.
Yes, you're right. And I did bring that up. We're speaking about this the other day. In society, I'll take it back even further. When I decided to go to law school, and actually when I started practice, the person who swore me in, this judge, reminded me that it's a noble profession. And I think the reminder was worthwhile, especially here in the Western part of the world, and the U.S. in particular. Lawyers have not the best name, to say, right? And some of that is well earned, I think, too. I mean, there's reasons for that, like any profession. But it's also the means by which we further society. And I mentioned this the other day when we were speaking, and my presentation at an event here was that the laws are there to help the businesses, too. Mm-hmm. The laws aren't there in a vacuum, and businesses aren't there in a vacuum either. Businesses are groups of people who reflect society in our community. And same with the laws. The laws don't just appear. Now, there may be thought that maybe the laws don't reflect what they should, but they come to be because people, and some of the people who run businesses, some people who are just in our community, they all advocate for the laws. So they come to interplay together, not overnight, but a process that takes sometimes months, sometimes years. And there's a way to trend those laws, to curate them, if you will, to understand where they're going for the good of the business, for the profitability. And if you can do that, you're actually up on the laws, then there's nothing to be afraid of or to have disdain for.
Right. You had mentioned that mom says we have to do this, so we go and do it.
Well, exactly.
But I think if we're prepared for it and we understand the reasoning, and like you said, they don't just appear out of the blue. They've come over years and started to develop, so we can be prepared for them and use them to protect our business, to grow our business more efficiently, and to lower our legal costs.
Yes. Like you said, the word is evolution. The laws are evolving. The presentation that you and I met at, I was talking about where the laws are today, but you may have remembered I talked about laws that are related to that law from prior years too. And so when I said trending, that's what's really important, is to understand, look, it's not like now you have 20 new laws this year your business has to comply with. It's not that simple, and it's not that static. It's actually more engaging and interesting than that too, if you can see where it was last year and where it's going next year. Because for the sake of the business, what it means is two words. It's strategic planning. If you're strategically planning for the business like you do in your world for finance, right? You do the same for legal as well. Then you have risk mitigation taken care of and your profitability. It's a continuous process. And a lot of businesses, we tend to make the mistake. And I say we because I'm also a business owner too.
As am I, and as you are as well. Exactly, so that's right. Why we're bringing this to you.
That's right. So it takes that empathetic understanding to realize that we make the mistake of reacting more to the laws. And some of that is because we're so busy in the day-to-day when you're running a business. But what I'm trying to do, and part of, you mentioned with the flat fee model too, that's our corporate counsel program. And with that, if they're ambitious businesses, they're all in, they want to do it right, then they may have the right composition to qualify for our corporate counsel program. We we adjust the rate, we set it accordingly for whatever their needs would be for their contract matters, employment law, risk mitigation issues, strategic planning. We provide all of that as general counsel for them, and we have it for a set fee, which we prorate over the year. We set that aside. A lot of things we're afraid of for lawyers is their darn billing rates.
Right.
The hourly rates.
By the minute, second.
By the minute, second. And when I start billing you 0.4 or 0.6 on my bill and you get it 45 days later, it erodes the trust, Marcia.
It does.
If you don't have trust with me or my peers, then we can't guide you. And then we'll ask you the silly question later, why didn't you call me?
Because I was afraid for the bill.
That's the answer. And we know that answer too. And I think that's inherently unfair to the process. And it doesn't engender the trust that you need for advisors like myself and for you.
Exactly.
For a business. So I mentioned that only in relation to my point being that having trusted advisors to help guide you on the evolution of your business, on the day-to-day, and where it's not a monetary consideration as much as it is you want to have that advisor.
You're right.
Then it all comes together so great. And we have long-term clients from 3 years to 12 years in the corporate counsel program who benefit from that. And that's the way it should be, I think, for what we do. I
agree 100%. The other side of it that you brought that is really important is that you never want to be in a position where you're reacting. You're reacting to a law. You're reacting to a problem in your business. You're reacting to the fact that you didn't make the money you thought you were. If you could be proactive in this and get the advice and the consulting that you need and understand what's available and what are the opportunities, then as you're moving forward, you're acting. And acting always costs less than reacting.
Very true.
Because you can start planning, you could do it on your own time, you could do it piece by piece rather than going, oh my gosh, now I've got this problem that I have to deal with.
That's right.
And it's often too late.
Being proactive, the key word is active and taking action, right? So being proactive means having the right team internally, having the right directors in place, managers in place who are actually proactive and understand the culture of the company, and maybe more than the owners do too, because they're there on the day-to-day. But also having that communication and the collaboration, not being afraid to call me or to call you and engage us early on. And likewise, being proactive, my responsibility is to inform you of the laws as they are before they get enacted, and then as they're coming up, and then how are we doing it with the business planning? Sometimes we need to bring in the finance person to understand how to budget accordingly for something like a paid sick leave or the hourly rate for a non-exempt that'll be changing each year. These are things that businesses don't just do on the day-to-day. They don't know about them unless we and I inform you on a regular basis.
Exactly. I think that's so important. So let's talk about some of those bills and laws that are up here that business owners in the small space really need to know about, and what we might start thinking now and what we need to have been doing yesterday possibly and making sure in the future as things comes along. Okay. So what are some of the laws that we need to worry about? You
may remember I mentioned there's 870 new laws that were enacted in the regular section.
I forgot about that for a specific reason. Yeah. There were a large number.
The presentation that Marcia attended, my first slide was here's law number 1 of 870.
Yeah.
And there's a collective gasp in the room. But I assured them, and I'm not going to cover all 870. And for our purposes of our podcast, I won't go over the details as much as I'll tell you. Number one, no surprises for any of my clients because these laws, a lot of them trended for years. We're talking about sexual harassment laws that trended before Me Too, but now have been accelerated since Me Too too. And as I mentioned, two examples in my presentations when I speak, they may be trending very, very heavy one direction, and I think it's going to be some adjustment.
Yeah, the pendulum swinging, right?
Exactly right. And I gave an example of essentially one of them being, if there's a sexual harassment claim, now the plaintiff has more than 1 year to bring the claim. In the past, you'd have to, not to go into the weeds here too much, but essentially 1 year to bring the claim and then you have a few years thereafter actually to make it through the court system. So you have to file a claim first with the DFEH, the state agency. Now it's extended to 3 years. So if there's a possible claim, you have 3 years before you have to actually file that, and the statute of limitations has been increased essentially. So how that means is the idea is to benefit the person who is aggrieved, who may have experienced the abuse, because trauma takes time to process. And these are things in society we understand. And now they're being reflected in the law. I think generally as humans, as a community, we can appreciate that. And I think we wouldn't agree, or we wouldn't think that's a bad thing. The issue, though, with that law, maybe possibly going too far in one part of the pendulum, is it doesn't just apply to those types of claims. Right. It's discrimination in general. So discrimination on a protected class, for instance, if it's a sex, age, or gender disability. So some of those things you might suggest, well, does that really take more than a year to process, to understand, to actually bring the claim? So it extends more of the burden and the concern for a business if they have a potential risk hovering over their head.
For 3+ years.
Exactly right. And 3+ years, Marcia, plus it takes longer to actually bring a claim, make its way through the court system. So you may file it within 3 years, and then it may take longer, maybe up to 6 years sometimes, to actually make its way. And so that means, again, a culture of risk appreciation and risk mitigation in the business is important. You can't be floored as soon as a claim lands on your desk, right, and you have no idea it was coming at all. So you have to be ready for these things by having effective training.
Good point.
Sexual harassment, whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit, you need to have these things in place. You have 5 or more employees now. You have to train. Before it was 50. So you can see that trend was happening. All my businesses knew that was happening. But I know a lot of new businesses now are not new businesses. A lot of existing businesses today.
Smaller businesses. Those that didn't have to do it in the past now have to do it.
And they didn't see this coming necessarily because they didn't have an advisor to tell them that. So that's where I think it's inherently responsible as an attorney that we have to not just help you react well, but help businesses to understand what's coming down the pike.
Exactly.
And having that, you can only get there if we could talk together, if we have an open dialogue. So with my clients, it's a matter of having regularly scheduled meetings. Plus, call me if you're a lead on a certain subject. I want to hear from them directly, and they do. Our engagement agreement, unlike a lot of law firms, is not 15, 20 pages. It's 3 pages.
Oh, good.
And I emphasize communication. If I don't have that, we can't work together. But if I have that, since we've talked about the money, we budgeted that as a line item, that's done. Now we're talking about the needs. And so being proactive, understanding these laws and the trends is important. So that's an example of the harassment one, and we're seeing a lot of things with Me Too. You're seeing a lot of things with just the human experience in the workplace. That's what I'll say. So
I like that because we're in business because we had a passion. We're in business because obviously we want to profit, right? But business is all about humans.
It is.
And in your talk last week, you talked about that, and I thought that was very key and very important for people to understand. We're still working together. We're still working this way together. And if you can humanize it and make it as a person, then you're going to eliminate a lot of your problems, right?
That's very true. I think that's an interesting thing. I worked once for, as I hear you say that, for a family-owned business. When I first went to college in Berkeley, came back down south and started working there, just like fresh out of school, right? And somehow this family...
Went behind the ears.
Completely went behind the ears. It was in Long Beach. It was pretty quick. And I remember somehow this family gave me a chance, and that family ended up being the family who owned Molina Healthcare.
Okay, big company.
Big company now today.
Yeah.
Fortune 300 perhaps. But at the time, family-owned business, and it was just growing, ambitious, and I helped them on business development things, compliance. I eventually became their compliance officer. Things before I even went to law school, and that experience helped me to understand. We're talking about the human dynamic is so important. And I have my degree is actually in organizational behavior. Okay. Which is different than a lot of lawyers who are poli-sci history.
Right. I like that.
Because of the human experience. I've always been drawn to the human experience. I just happen to be a lawyer. I think I'm a humanist, if you will. I'm a business person who happens to be a lawyer. And
what a combination, right?
But I think that's why there's some empathetic understanding of the business owner's experience.
Right.
To do what I do and to enjoy it the way I do is because I am you. And I got some of that experience because I got to work in a business and then another one before I actually started practicing law. And that's helped me so much. I didn't have the fancy clerkships. Instead, I had this experience of a company that we took to NASDAQ, and we expanded in different states. These things all apply to all my businesses today, all my clients. They're expanding, they're growth positioned, they're hiring more, they're in a rubric and a scheme of laws that's complicated and changing in California and nationally. And
how many did you say? 870 of them?
That's only last year alone. That combines with the ones that existed before. Yeah. So it's growing and evolving, but you need to be in the midst of it and understand it, and then and help your business owners to not be afraid of it, but to grow with the laws, not beside the law, but grow with it.
Like it. Love it. So what else? What are some of the other laws that we can talk about that would impact the small business owner, 5 to 10, 20 employees?
There's some that we didn't really talk about in my presentation. I couldn't cover it all, but some that come to my mind are, talk about the human experience. So families in the workplace. Mm-hmm. So there is a need now. This was happening. This is a great example of the evolving nature of this law too. If you have a business and there's any pregnancy or there's need for lactation, essentially. Before, and I'm talking about maybe even as early as last year and the year before that too. 2 years before that, there was no laws really on this as much. Then became laws that were like, well, you need to have a dedicated space for the mother to provide those lactation services. For I don't know, it sounds so lawyer, lactation services, but to spend time and nurse with her child,
or pump.
There you go.
So if you're working and your child's not with you, you still need time to pull the milk out so that it can be produced for the next day so they can work. So.
Exactly right. And when I hear you say that, you get it, because it's not just, it's the maternal experience, but it's productivity.
Yep.
And that's what companies at the time, I remember thinking, well, now we got a dedicated space in there. If you approach it from this, now we got to do it, like you mentioned, the maternal thing, like mom, here's another law. If you do that, it actually, you're sending the wrong message to yourself, much less to your employees, that this is a burden. And when you do that psychologically, actually to the workplace and the team, that shows you're devaluing that experience of that particular mother or mothers, right? And that makes them feel less than involved, maybe even targeted. And these are the kinds of things that eventually engender disrespect, distrust, and claims. And these are the kinds of things that I try to really get in front of when I see those signs happening. So with this law, now you need to have a dedicated lactation room.
Okay.
And not just like the side room next to the copy machine.
Or a chair in the restroom.
That's exactly right. It has to be, exactly. A private space that also feels inherently comfortable for the mother too. That, again, the experience matters. And now it's built into the law. If you, and you're a mother too, if you remember the experience of doing this and juggling that with your career, I mean, it's hard enough as it is. And so much is expected of you, particularly as a woman. And we're talking on the heels of International Women's Day. I mean,
yesterday.
So how can we celebrate and empower what I believe are the more important members of our society who drive it really with women? And then when they go to work 9 to 5 or whatever it may be, they're secondary. Their experience doesn't matter in that sense. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work as a society or a community or as a business either. As I mentioned, it's going to erode trust and productivity and going to hurt you too. So this new law means you have to have a dedicated space with a
comfortable environment.
Comfortable environment to be able to do that.
To be able to nurse.
Lactation services.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow. So now we have also, I know that there are laws about family leave. Yes. So many of us, at least in my age bracket, I'm taking care of my children or my children's children, and as well as my parents. Yeah. So there's that sandwich generation that I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders to care for these people, as well as work and provide and be a valuable person in society. So I heard that there are extended family leave laws now.
Yeah. So it's paid family leave and paid sick leave. So what that means, and you got a great example there, our definition of what a family is, much less our own identity and gender, is changing. And so the laws are reflecting that too. And increasingly our parents are getting older and they're part of our family too. So it's not just the newborns that come into our lives that we need to care for, but we need to care for the family members too. So the law now is expanded to include children, not just your birth children, but foster children too, anyone in your care. And like you were mentioning too, parents, grandparents, there's really no, you can't really finds that that's the exclusion, say, aha, well, that's not a family member. So that's just not the experience that the approach that business should take anyway.
Right.
It should be inclusive essentially now. So that's the difference on the definitions changed. The length of time is changed. You can take more of that time off and have it. Before it was also a limited radius of where you live from that space, but now it's also expanded too. So the bottom line is this. Without focusing on really the numbers as much, it's really about understanding if your employee were to come to you and say, look, I have something going on with my family, if you can manage it in some way, and especially if there's anyone who can come in and sub out and allow for that time with the employee, the answer is always going to be yes.
Because it should be yes.
And I say it's going to be because this is what I want people to think, that there shouldn't be an option on this. But what you should do is obviously plan for it. So it's not like you'll be surprised when the question comes in. You've hired an employee who has a family, and you'll know that they appreciate being here. The same values you have in your culture, in your company, are what they probably have out there. And if you're a family person yourself, they likely have the same too. So they'll have the same similar needs. You have to be able to say yes and plan for that hiring, plan for what that experience of having that employee will be like. And that includes involving your controller, your CFO, allowing for those proper payroll
financial needs.
For
budgeting for it, exactly. Setting the time up for it.
When Marcia is gone, then you need to make sure that Marcia can do the work as well.
Right.
And there's communication. A really good example of that, and this is not really appearing yet in the law, but you're going to see this next year, and I'm predicting this because this is where the trends are, is that the human experience matters, but it also includes ailments. Right? And see what's happening now, particularly at this time. We're going to probably date this, but by the time you see this, the coronavirus. Right? There's a virus now, and it's now pretty much officially a pandemic. And I don't think there's enough information out there in the public for us to feel assured that we're in front of it yet. But until that time, I have businesses now too that I'm helping them to message with internally their staff. Some of them are medical businesses, so with their outgoing clinics, and also with their partners as well on how to essentially contend with the virus and still have a productive relationship with the company. And I bring that up as an example to say, look, remote working is encouraged. We're seeing Google get in front of this. It's a great example. Yeah. And they're telling all their employees that tens of thousands of people that they can work remotely. And so those are good barometers of examples of how to model our own businesses too, that are small to mid-sized businesses that are growing, but we have a big employee base, and we have a lot to do this year and a lot to do. This first quarter's ending. I understand that the productivity timelines, but you're not going to benefit the business at all if you lose people to ailments and a virus like that too, because then that'll scare, and then no one will trust your leadership at all. So the answer should be to get in front of these things now. You may have a very healthy work space right now. Good. I would say take advantage of it by making sure you have reinforcing it, making sure that you're ready for it. I always say it's not a matter of if, it's when, but when. So let's get ready for it, which you can appreciate as much.
Yes, totally. And it's all about planning. It's all about planning.
It is.
If you can plan that you have family members in your employment, you can plan that they're going to need some sort of time off, whether they're above childbirthing or their parents or what have you. It's just, and the sickness, I mean, you've got to plan for this because happy employees make better profits.
That's right.
Right? Because these employees that you have engaged, whether it's 1, 10, 50, these employees are often forward-facing with your clients. And if they're not happy, it's going to translate into your profits. If your employees aren't productive, it's going to translate into your profits.
Yes.
And I think I would much rather have a productive employee working at home than one coming in, getting everybody else sick and everybody, doing the chit-chat around the water cooler, trying to stay away from them.
Very true.
So there's so many adjustments you can make. And I think one of the big words would be flexibility.
That's a great word. I like that word. I think that's very true. Adaptability.
Flexibility. Yeah.
The same idea, but you have to have, those are great words, right? But you get it and I get it. But you said the word active and action. How do you have flexibility and adaptability? It takes some boldness. It takes some courage to do that. But I'm giving you examples of companies that are doing it that are bigger than us, the Googles. And they have that. And that's why they're in positions of leadership in their industry too. Likewise, my supply chain clients, my medical clients, my tech clients that are growing, it's the same thing. They are ambitious. They're all in. They have something novel about what they're doing and they believe in it. And so does their team. And I'm telling you, Marcia, like for me, when I go into those businesses and I see that and I feel it, it fires me up too.
Right.
And that's why it's incumbent upon me to try to help them to get ahead of things that they don't know, only because I have the perspective and I'm in the industry and a field and an interest that I can get in front of it. And if I don't have that, if I can get in front of the issue and identify it at least, I don't say I have all the answers, but as a general counsel, I quarterback that, and I will have great advisors to help, and I'll bring them in.
Exactly.
And I've done that. I was at an advisory board meeting for one of my clients recently, and we have it not quarterly, but we set it up. I helped them to strategically plan that and think about the composition of that board to advise them. And everyone was looking around, and one person it was a real estate broker, made the observation that he, the CPA, myself, the benefits person, were all brought in by me, which to me was like, that's why I do what I do, because I'm solution oriented and I can bring in the team to help. I don't profess to have all the answers, but I will be a partner with that business to do that.
Right.
Likewise, they don't know the laws and they don't know the way around it. So that's my contribution is that. The other guys and ladies bring in an expertise I don't have, but together we're all on the same team in alignment, and we're actually learning as we go, so we can do better for that organization next year and the year after too.
I love it. I think having that team of advisors, we business owners, we wear multiple different hats. You know, you're the accountant one day, which you shouldn't be. I keep telling you that. We're the marketing person. We're the salesperson. We're the copy fixer. We're we're doing everything.
IT.
The IT, yeah. The HR, and we really shouldn't be. As we grow in business and we want to make more profits, we have to understand what we shouldn't be doing and who we should have relying on our team. And legal is so important. I think it's really one of the key places that you should budget for. Have someone on deck that can anticipate the potential problems, avoid those problems, and make sure you're in line for the things that you need to do. So this is I'm so glad that you came on with us today. So this is perfect timing.
Thank you for appreciating the gospel in the sense. I think that's the idea, is get ahead of risk mitigation issues and increase profitability by being proactive.
Yeah, and it always starts with the human aspect, right?
It does.
Because we're all working together. So I love it.
We're evolving together and we're growing together.
Perfect. So do you have anything that you'd like to share, your contact information? All this will be in the podcast notes, but do you have any kind of consultation that you can offer us?
Well, absolutely. So what I do is I try to get out there and preach along with you like this. I do a lot of presentations as well. I'll do this for trade associations, and I'm getting out there and doing that much more on the top most impactful laws that business should be aware of.
Right.
And then I go dive a little deeper into some of these specific laws, like the independent contractor laws that are shifting. That's very specific.
Wow. Yeah.
And I have a great colleague here. I think we'll be speaking with you about that specifically.
Yeah. Lee's coming on soon.
Lee Gilbert is great. He's academic almost in that particular law. Laws on the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act. And I'm speaking on that specifically too, which affects all businesses if you're transacting 50,000 records of California residents or more. So even if you're processing cards, I mean credit cards. A lot of businesses don't know about this law, and the fines will be very, very high when plaintiffs' attorneys start to send you letters saying you violated my client's personal information by not giving it to her or to him. So again, that's a collaborative. Just to digress a little bit, that is a collaborative approach. Legal, IT,